just after the election, it was a deep reset and literally had to sleep for 2 days. But I'd done a provincial election followed by a month of craziness around cross-border tariffs and everything else, and then a federal election. But normally, an easy reset is walking my dog through the urban oasis. I live in downtown Toronto, but it always surprises people that come to visit me on how many green spots there are that I get to walk the dog through and just detach from the hustle and bustle, which you can still do in the middle of a city. And I've been, happy and pleased to be able to do that, whether I'm in Toronto or when I was in Ottawa, Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver. We're really blessed with that, even in our cities. Be a professional soccer player for Glasgow Celtic. That was a dream as a boy, and my skill level did not allow that to happen. So that, or maybe being a pop singer would be pretty cool. Crowds go wild. That'd be fun. I would say that there's an increased level of self-censorship within the media, and a shrinking Overton window of what we're allowed to discuss or how we're allowed to discuss it. And then I would say, even within that, even within groups that believe that they are standing for free speech, you sometimes see, well, if you're not exactly where I am, then I don't want to hear from you and I want to shut you down. Cancel culture is not a one-sided affair, unfortunately, and you find it all over. And increasingly, you see cancel culture from all sides, for folks who just don't want to hear anything that doesn't align with where they are at that moment. And so, whether it's academics being canceled, attempts to shut down books, discourage people like myself from writing on certain topics, there is a lot of pressure to just to try and conform, and thankfully, still a lot of people who say, well, wait a minute, we need to consider a different point of view. Academia is one of the worst places for censorship. And, we're constantly told that no, academic institutions are about preserving free speech, about preserving academic freedom. It is very one-sided and very political. And when I speak to my friends who are in the academy, they have told me that it's incredibly difficult. Even, yes, the academy is predominantly left-leaning, much more NDP, sometimes very radical left-wing, but you don't even have to be a conservative to feel that pressure. I've heard from folks who would classically be a centrist or a liberal who also feel that pressure now. And so, what she's gone through is horrible and shouldn't be part of what we have in the academic space. In fact, it's the opposite of what we should have. But this has been a slow creep for a long time. It really is kind of the frog in the pot of water that is slowly boiling, and eventually, it's boiling and you haven't even noticed. I think that's where we're at. I think that journalists, especially opinion columnists like myself, but also straight up reporters, need to be willing to put out stories that will make people uncomfortable. It's funny, I've never liked the saying about journalism that your job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I've never liked that because it turns everyone into an activist. But the reality is we have become about comforting the comfortable and ignoring the afflicted. And I understand newsrooms are shrinking. I get more requests for looking into this story or that than I can possibly deal with in a day. But you need to be willing to look at the stories that will make people uncomfortable if you're going to be willing to stand up for free speech, if you're going to be willing to stand up for true democratic values, because just going along with the received wisdom, the consensus view, isn't going to ensure that we have a functioning democracy. It's going to ensure that the The people who are in power and are comfortable now continue to be in power and comfortable, whether they deserve to or not. I think that we would end up with a smaller society. We would end up with a society where you are accepted or rejected based on your publicly stated political viewpoints and beliefs. And we don't want that. I have a wide range of friends with political views across the spectrum, and I intend on keeping it that way. And it challenges me in my views at times to be out with a friend having coffee, out for dinner, grabbing a pint, and they're putting forward their point of view, which is vastly different from mine, and makes me sharper, makes them sharper for us to have that debate. That's what we should be having. We're getting more and more insular. As I said earlier, people don't want to hear viewpoints that don't exactly mirror those. We need to ensure that we are having those debates in academic institutions, in media outlets, in online forums, and within the groups that we form among ourselves, whether it's an online group or a civil society group. We've got to be willing to have the debate, and without the debate, we will stifle, we will stagnate, and that's not good for society going forward. Just that there's always grouchy contrarians, like like the man that the award is named for, George Jonas, like past recipients, like Christy Blatchford, willing to say, well, let's consider something else. And what I've loved about some of them over the years is that they would stand up for the ability of people who they did not like or who they did not agree with to be able to say things, to be able to have the less popular voice heard. And you know what? Maybe the person that you're standing up for is wrong, but silencing voices just because you don't want to hear what they have to say, it isn't what we have protected in our charter. And while I think the charter has been abused by the courts and by our politicians, it is there to protect us, not the other way around. And so we need to stand up for that very important fundamental freedom. I truly believe that one of the biggest threats to free speech in Canada is self-censorship. Something we all feel pressure to engage in, whether consciously or unconsciously. We will, ooh, should I say that? And I understand the position that a lot of Canadians are in. You could lose your job, you could lose social status, you could lose your friends. Thankfully, that's not a position that I'm in with my job. I'm expected to say things that may not be popular, but truly we are in an increasing manner just self-censoring on so many issues. And if we don't watch that, and we just constantly allow an ever-increasing role for government in regulating speech, especially online, it's not going to be a very bright future for Canada. So we really do need to watch the amount of self-censorship. Governments can do so much to censor us, but we can also do a lot to censor ourselves. And when we do that, we give the government the permission to step in and push back even further.